Yo, 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 what's happening, everybody? What's going on? My name's Ian Robinson, and I am the seniors trainer here for ZBrush at Maxon. And it's super fun to be here and to do a lot of cool live streams. It's been a minute, so as you can see, we have a cool creature on the screen that we'll be doing. But first off, hey, what's up, Jason? What's up, Kaylin? How's it going? What's up, Ink in Motion Studio? Welcome, welcome. Yeah, so today we are going to be focusing on this little guy because I'm actually doing a few things. I've been invited to do a Substance Day talk, which is really cool. And then also we got a few presentations I'm doing this year. Plus I'll be at Lightbox, plus I'll be at Adobe Max. And then we have the ZBrush Summit. So there's a lot of cool stuff happening. And so this little character, I was gonna make something fun and kind of Halloween themey, little demonish, get my good vibe out there. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and just do a ton of sculpting. If you're new here and have never seen me stream, feel free to ask any questions that go on. And let's get some music going and let's do some sculpting. We will be doing some re-topology today. FYI, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So that's going to be happening. Let me go ahead and get some tunes on. There we go. I always like to have music in the background. It's more for me than anything else, but if it's too loud, you guys can let me know. Hey, what's up, Catching? How you doing? Yes, Lightbox, absolutely. So it's gonna be a ton of fun. All right, so this is the little guy I'm working on. Again, kind of Doom inspired, if you guys have ever played Doom. And so right now, we're just gonna do a lot of cleanup on him. I'm still working on the horns. We got the teeth happening, so let's just go ahead and just get into it. And actually, I want to make the horns all have the same type of shape. That's going to be super important. So I want to have this kind of angle shape to it a bit. Yeah. Any insights about the new re-topology tool that's upcoming? Oh, I got a lot of insights, and unfortunately, I can't really share them with you at the moment. But I will say that I'm really excited for them, and I can't wait for you guys to get a hold of it. So, yeah, I wish I could say more, but I'm excited for it. There we go. It's going to make life a lot easier. That is for sure. Same thing with, we also announced the new UV editor that will also be showcasing or coming up soon as well. So, yeah, I'm excited. As soon as I can say something, believe you me, I will be talking about it. And there will be tutorials. All right. Hey, what's up, John? We love you too, buddy. Ian says we won't tell, and we always trust in Ian. I know. Believe me, I want to talk about it, guys. I want to talk about it. Honestly, as soon as it comes out, I'm going to be holding a ton of streams about it. We'll be taking questions on it. And if you guys watch the ZBrush Summit, there may or may not be a conversation about it. So that's what I could say. But I'm excited that you guys are excited. That makes me excited because I equally am so excited. All right. Let's make this connection here make a little bit more sense. So obviously when I was creating this little design here, I was thinking about, well, I've been playing a little bit of old school Doom for a bit. And I was thinking about oh, okay, I like how how they designed their creatures and stuff. And so here, I was kind of thinking the same type of vibe with it. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Needs some cleanup for sure. That's all right. Boom. Get a little smooth there. Yeah, it should be good. Should be good. Cool. All right. So here, let's take a look at the topology I have right now. So this is ZBrush, and it's pretty low res considering what it is. But again, I want to go through and actually do some proper retopo on it, because I want to move it into substance, and then I want to texture it there and then bring this guy to life. So, and this mesh, I want it to be cool. I want to try some animation stuff with it. That's why I want to also do a proper retopo. So it's going to be really interesting to see what we could do. This might take a bit of time though, so this might be what I'd call one of my boring streams, but I think retopo is a lot of fun and super important. So let's go ahead and save this. Catching, I have a question. I'm still running on the 2022 version of ZBrush, and a lot of crazy updates has happened, like Dynamesh, ReMesher, etc. I can't work without that. I can't work without now. Has anything crazy like that completely changed your workflow since 2022? Hey, what's up? What's up, Skyry? So that's a great question. So, I mean, there's been a ton of stuff that has absolutely changed my workflow going into the newer version. One of the first things actually was Proxy Pose. And one of the things that I really like about Proxy Pose is it kind of pushes beyond, or allows you to stay in a higher dense mesh and still be able to move things around quite easily. So for example, it does support subdivision. So I have subdivisions here, and with Proxy Pose, let's just solo this for a second. What Proxy Pose is going to do, if we have some details kept, right, is it's going to reduce my mesh into kind of a tessellated version. But what it's doing is it's actually reducing the quality, or sorry, the density. It's reducing the density. I went from 2.2 million down to 20,000 vertices, right? So it is definitely helping with things like posing and sculpting. If I really wanted to take this now, I can move this and I can get things all going, right? Once I'm done, I can snap back out of it, and it's going to remain all those, it's going to keep all those details, which is super important, even if you do sculptural changes. Furthermore, again, it really works well with Dynamesh. If I didn't have any subdivisions like here, and this was just super dense mesh, you know, again, I could turn this back on and literally pull like a percentage of like 1.7% out of the total amount of mesh, move things around. So in this case here, I'll just go crazy with it real fast. Let's just mask off this section, right, of the jaw. Let's unhinge this. There you go. Let's just get wild. Let's just do this, all right, and come back here. And so now that change, all my updates are going to move with it. So something like this actually was like really beneficial, and it's Control-Z-able. So it's something that I really, really like. That was one of the cool features, and I use it a lot, like a lot. And then again, obviously we just announced Retopo and UV editor, so that's going to be coming. But then other things like Slime Bridge is there. Slime Bridge is a really cool one because, again, if you wanted to connect two things, for example, let's give them some saliva, right? So I'm just going to go ahead. Whee! And saliva, you know, you can use like curved tubes and stuff like that. But like, let's go ahead and just give him this little guy. And this is just going to be simple Dynamesh. I'm going to control, drag this down, say something like this. Boom, you know. All right, here you go. Here's your 2 points. Now what's really cool about this, let's just solo for a second. If I come in here and I like paint this section and then I paint this section both with a mask, so that I just mask off those two areas. And then I come into Slime Bridge, which is its own menu. And I don't need too much, but maybe a couple bridges. So let's say 5. With a pretty tight tension, hit this, and boom, now I have little stringies that are coming out here. But furthermore, what's cool about the stringies is that it's all quadded, clean mesh. So now I can take just like this one piece if I wanted to, come over to, let's say, just delete hidden for a second, right? Use, you know, local symmetry, really inflate this up a bit. And now I'm able to like quickly create some nice, you know, kind of saliva bits that I can attach to his teeth or whatnot. And it gives me clean topology. So that's also like something that's really cool. And then there's just been a lot of really cool updates and stuff like that too. Like for the example, let's take a look at the horn. Here, let's say I wanted to just bend this guy here. We have the new anchor brush, which we have an anchor brush and then an anchor's classic. And if I were to do like the bend here, take these 2 points, boom, I could start bending these points here. Right, and I can highlight that spot. Alt delete to move those. But again, it kind of helps you like do really cool stuff like that. which is fun. You can also twist with it. So if you wanted to twist on 2 points, you can go ahead and start twisting. So little things like this make life a lot easier and just really fun. So, you know, there's a few things right there that I like, that I use from time to time, that really help with my workflow process. And then there's so many other things too that we're bringing to the table. One of the other things too that's been a big update, and this one was really crucial and near and dear to me, was actually another way to do UVs. Because again, UVs are something that, like, you know, everybody needs to utilize. So let's just take something like a cube for just a second, just because it'll be the easiest thing to show on. Right now, one of the workflows that a lot of people do is like, oh, I need to break this cube up into different sections. So I'm going to go ahead and say crease, and you know what? I need polygroups. So let me just go to polygroups, and I'm going to go to group by normals. Okay, cool. Now from here, I'm going to go up to Z plugin. Yep, UV master. Make sure I pick my polygroups. Sure, symmetry, unwrap, and now I have UVs, right? And so then if I were to flatten this, you're like, great, I got UVs, but these aren't like super ideal UVs, right? You know, I mean, it's still usable and it's better than nothing. But what if for 5 seconds I use my Z modeler tool here and I have a single group, nothing more, nothing less, come over on the edge and I say, I'm going to crease my edges. I'm actually going to do a partial loop. So I can also just do, if I hover over a point here, I can go to crease on the shortest path, right? And so from here, I can now click one point, click another point, click another point, click another point. There we go. Maybe I want to let's see. If I hover over here, just do real quick, just an edge, just to get this point here. I'm going to go from here to here, right? What I'm doing, I could come here to UV map, I can go to create, and I can just do creased edges. So now I can flatten this point, and now I can, let's actually turn the bump off for a second. And again, so now I can do unwrap by creasing, which is a great one because now you can have a lot more control. What if you wanted the creasing to come through like this? You know, you needed it to come through. Those are spots that you can like take the time to create those seams by using creasing, and then when you're done with them, just undo the crease aspect. So yeah, there are a few things just really quickly that are game changer for me. And then there's a lot more stuff that we're planning on coming to as well. So Blood Rapture, I can't answer that question right now just because we haven't fully announced everything that is capable with the new UV editor, but trust me when I say it is on our mind. Yo, what's up, Mr. White? How you doing? Love Slime Bridge, yeah. Hey, Ian, how are you? One question. Can you guide me how to sculpt a veiled Mary sculpture? I have already made the bust and I'm failing miserably in cloth drapery. Tried everything but failing. Yeah, dude, not a problem. Absolutely. Here, let's do this. Yeah, let's come on in here. So, all right. Drapery is super, super cool. And actually, let me do this. We've done almost absolutely no work to this statue whatsoever. So you know what he's going to do? He's going to live right over here. And he's going to watch and judge me carefully as I show an attempt of what to do here. Okay, so let's go up to Tool for a second, and then let's go ahead and... Now, what model should we do this on? Let's do it on the doggy. Let's do it on the doggy. Boom. Okay, there's your doggy. Doggy! Doggies are cool. Okay, so drapery. There's a few ways you can approach this. And one of the things that I would highly recommend, actually, is first playing with the cloth brushes to get a sense on how the dynamic system will work for you. So here's the dynamic system, and we're just going to dock that on the left-hand side. First and foremost, the dynamic system, what I like about it is it's really simply just a really fun way to get anything cloth-like. So, for example, your base settings have 0 self-collision, which I hate that. You want self-collision, believe you me. And then gravity's turned on to a ridiculous number. So if I were to just run this simulation real fast, do we break ZBrush? Probably. Nope, not yet. Okay, great. So let's go ahead here. Actually, I'm going to insert one other thing real fast. Let's get a plane in here. Let's move this plane on up to the top. Whee! Yeah, there we go. Okay, so first and foremost, again, with this dog right here, if I were to run a collision volume, you need multiple subtools active at the same time in order for it to see what's happening. And again, here, we have floor collision turned on. And then if you were to run this, boom, there you go. My doggy straight up melts. That's actually a really cool animation too. Just melt it, right? But here's the fun part about all this, Control Z, is obviously with the dynamic system activated, you have cloth brushes that would actually help you really well. So for example, here's like some cloth dimpling. I'm going to turn on just dynamic just so we can see like a smoother thing. But see, now what I could do is I could start using these brushes to get some of these kind of folds that look pretty cool. But this is only attached to the model that's being affected by, of course, the dynamic system. And also, too, something to keep in mind with the dynamic system is ZBrush is vertice based, right? So you need topology in order to get something that looks really, really good. So in this case, if I were to lower the intensity and just start pulling this, that is actually only going to give me so much because it's really colliding these other, the vertices that's smashing together. We do want to have some sort of self-collision turned on. That's important. But then you do want to actually like subdivide a little bit to get more of a settle effect. So see now with that vertice or with these with that higher density, you're getting a lot more of that kind of cloth effect. Same thing with a cloth hook, right? Once you're going to start getting some of these wrinkles, then these wrinkles are going to help. Now, this is just painting on just the one thing. For something like drapery, what you're trying to do, I would recommend working in sections. Of course, you want your reference. So if we were to quickly, for just 2 seconds, pull up Google, and then we'll brave it, and we'll call this blinding drapery statue. Watch Ian not know how to spell, by the way. That will be great. So with something like this, right? So let's take a look at images. There we go. So let's take a look at something like this, which, by the way, I admire this type of work, especially when you're looking at it in freaking marble or stone. It's amazing. But the thing is here, what you really want to have a good understanding of, okay, is your points of contact from where you're getting stretching or tension and when the folds are falling over each other. So something like this, you could also kind of work with something underneath it. So here, now with something here, the first step I would do is work in sections. Which section do you want to focus on? And then slowly work on that, right? So let's look at our transpose cloth brush. So now with the transpose cloth brush and the dynamic system turned on, let's turn on collision volume. And now what I can do, right, is I can bring cloth into this animal or the statue or whatever. And with self-collision turned up a little bit, I'm already going to get some of these really nice kind of decent folds. And then the idea would be to start kind of moving it in a way that makes a lot of sense. This is too big of a piece, by the way. I think if I were to start doing something like this, I would start kind of small. So let's get the transpose here. Let's work with like something that makes, there we go, something a little bit better than this, right? And then this is just like if I wanted to work with this one section, and you can bring this down. Now notice too, there's some spacing right here, and that spacing is actually driven from this inflate button here. So if you want this to be closer, you need to do something like 0.05 and recalculate that. And now you can get a lot closer to your subject, which will then kind of help you work with this. And then from here, right, you could just get like your favorite cloth brushes or the ones that ship a ZBrush. There's also, I think maybe thick skin clay would work really well here. Because, you kind of you can kind of push this up a little bit and you can build up some of these folds and tensions and stuff like that. So this could be something you can do as well. I've never done one of these statues 100%. So even I'm thinking like, how would I approach this? Another thing you could do, I guess in a sense, is just mass extract things out. I'm kind of tangenting right now, so don't mind me. but you can mask extract certain sections out and then sculpt on top of that. You know what I mean? So like, let's say, for example, we wanted to create some folds here on the neck. You could do something like this, right? Kind of soften this area up just a little bit. Well, softening didn't really matter. Don't know why I did that. Habit. Extract at like 0 thickness. Say okay and accept that. And then that's going to give you extra topology. I did that backwards, by the way, because my mask was inverted. So do that. Just try one more time. Thick 0, accept this. Right? So now you have this underlining piece. And then again, you could take like, you could just start sculpting on top of that to get some of these kind of drapery folds. Like maybe just in this way. And just really research and understand like the actual, like the anatomy of folds from compression to it being stretched, et cetera, et cetera. So those are some of the ways I would approach it. Hopefully that was helpful as I just rambled through that 90% of the time. No. Hey, what's up, Yuri? Yes, I'm going to see you at Lightbox, buddy. I will absolutely see you to Lightbox. Neuhaus, that's a story and a half. I'll tell you about it when I see you, bud. What am I using to display the keyboard and mouse? So it's actually called, I think it's like OBS Input Overlay. Just Google that real fast. It's all free. It's really cool. Okay, audio's good? Okay, good. And do you have any videos on how to create a connection joint for 3D printing models? Ooh, that's super awesome. Actually, I have a ton of stuff on that, but I can show you. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. Anyway, this was super fun. And actually, we'll do the doggy on this one too here. Okay, cool. So just a simple, really easy way to make key cutting is really just utilizing live Boolean and making a simple key cut. Hey, what's up, Travis? Good morning, sir. So the way to really do this would be to just use a simple plane and build up something really easy and fun. So let's do that together. So let's go with our plane 3D. We'll go with this here. Boom, boom, boom. And let's go to geometry. Reconstruct. Something as simple as this. You can actually Control-Z that one more. You could do something a little bit more dense. And actually, I preferred this one. So what was that? There we go. Reconstruct 1, 2. Reconstruct twice, delete higher, gives you this guy right here. And so with this, let's go Z modeler. And then let's just hover. Oh, also too, one of the new things with 2026 is the fact that I could freaking see. I could see my edges and my faces and dots a whole lot simpler. This update to Z modeler is actually, it's really nice for me. Anyway, so here, we're working on single-sided geometry too, by the way, and that's on purpose, and I'll tell you why in a second. But to just carry a simple key that's going to just be used to create a male and female intersection right away, this is one way to do it, which is just coming in here. Let's do Q mesh, polygroup all, and let's just extrude this out just a bit. And then we're just going to mask off this top part here, and we're just going to use the right transpose, not the cloth one, because that's not right, and we're just going to scale this down. Now, the angle of this, in my opinion, doesn't truly matter. You just don't want it to be straight. So if you do a little bit or you do a lot, it's up to you. Just don't have it straight, because a straight, sharp edge is the worst thing in manufacturing. And because 3D printing is associated with manufacturing in so many ways, right? When you do straight key cuts and you don't have a nice bevel or rounded edge, it's too tight of a snug. So you really want to like just don't care how you make that angle, just make a slight angle. That's going to allow the tolerance of inserting to be a bit better. So again, but you don't have to go like this, but something like this would be fine. And then from here, we're just going to go ahead and give us a little bit of support here. So instead of doing all these different edge loops and stuff like that, what I recommend actually is just going to group by normals real fast. and then just come in here and do a crease by polygroups, right? You can, however, insert multiple edge loops real fast and just add a few in here just to give you like just a little bit, but we're going to subdivide, so it's fine. And then, of course, here, I could just quickly uncrease all creases polygroups. Great. The reason why is this ideally, right, if I subdivide this, it's going to give me a sharp edge. I don't want a sharp edge. I just argued against having sharp edges, right? So the reason what we can do instead is with creasing, we can have natural fall off happen really fast. And so all we need to do is come under crease, and this crease level, this is your subdivision level. Drop this down to say like subdivision level 3. And then your crease tolerance at 45-degree angle, that's going to, at a 45-degree angle, it's going to go ahead and start rounding out after subdivision level 3. So maybe subdivision level 2. Play with this number. It's arbitrary, just whatever looks good for you. Now when I subdivide once, twice, 3, 4, you can see now it's starting to round out a bit, and that's giving me a nice fall off, which is really good. And that's the kind of fall off that I want, okay? We'll just go ahead and delete. Now we have this single-sided edge with some nice fall off. How do we use this? So the thing we're going to do, now you can make this, by the way, into a brush, and I kind of recommend doing that. So face the key facing you if you wanted to have this as a brush, and then go to your brush menu and just say create insert and say new. So now I can drag it out and it'll be facing the normal that I have it. So that way you can always have that, and then you can save that out if you would like. If you don't want to do that, you could just save it as a ZTL and import it whenever and just call it your key cut, right? Let's go ahead and put this guy in a folder. So we'll call this cut the doggy. And then let's just drag the key cut, bring that straight into there. And we want to keep the key cut underneath the dog at this point, all right? And then now what we're going to do, we have solo turned on. We just need to place this where we want this to be. So not the dog. We're going to come in and we're going to place this wherever we want. We're going to size this down. This is where transparency is going to be your best friend, right? And you're going to place this in a way that's going to just straight up take the head of the dog, and we would cut this, okay? Now from here, this is what's really, really important, okay? Scale. Scale is going to matter. It's going to really control your key cuts, and there's ways to measure to give you precise cutting so you know exactly what you're going to get when you export out the STL. So for this, we're going to go up to Z plugin, and we're going to have the dog selected because we want to set the scale of the dog. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to Scale Master. And then here we're going to set scene scale. Now, this is where a lot of people ask a ton of questions about scale. Your default scale scene in ZBrush is 2 millimeter. That's really small. I think that's around the size of a rice grain. Maybe-ish. So you want to understand the scale of it, and that's why ZBrush, that's one of the cool things about ZBrush and its strength, really, is the fact that you're working in such a small scene. So if I say 2 millimeter, well, I'm going to need to like make this a little bit bigger, right? So say the Y, that's how tall something's going to be. Let's say, just for the sake of argument, for this demo, we'll make them 100 millimeter. So you're looking at like 4-ish inches. 25.4 is an inch, so you're looking about like 4 inches for the Imperial folks. And then we'll just say resize subtools. When you get this warning, ignore this warning. All this is saying is that, hey, everything needs to be resized because it's exceeding the original size. It's fine. It's just, it says error. It really should just be like, hey, it's all good. Just let it go. Let it do its thing. So boom, there you go. So now you did that. So now we're here. So if we go back up to Z plugin and we say set scene scale, boom, 100 millimeters in height, that's perfect. Now we can perform our cutting action, right? So anytime you're working in ZBrush and you're doing key cut prep or statue prep, just remember you're removing your artist brain and you're putting on your engineering brain. And that's one way that I always think about things. It's like I'm no longer creating, I'm more manufacturing and preparing to what is to come, right? So now I have this. Notice this is single-sided geometry. Well, what we can do from here is, we have the key cut in the folder. We need to turn on live Boolean. So let's do that. Boop, live Boolean's turned on. And now here with the key cut, we're going to go ahead and set this to a cutting action. Now it disappeared, or at least it appeared to have disappeared, correct? But it's right there. But because it's single-sided geometry, the cut it's making is so tiny, it's not even visible. So instead, we can come up to geometry, and now we can come up to dynamic subdiv, turn that on, and give it some thickness. And now this thickness is going to apply to this object, right, to our key cut, giving us inflation on both sides and allowing you to find that kind of happy middle ground. So hey, we'll just say 0.002 for the sake of argument. Okay. Now don't apply it. You don't need to do that. What you need to do at this point is just come up here to your folder, hit the little cog wheel on the folder and say Boolean with dynamic subdivision. What that'll do is it'll perform the cut action and it will apply the thickness to the object without you actually having to do that. The reason for that is now, if we hit solo, right, we have these different objects and we have this cut. We can actually measure this distance of what this was. So we can actually hit W for the gizmo and hit Y to bring up this old school guy, this transpose. And now we can pick one point to another. And right at the very top, it's telling me that 0.2683 millimeters is the distance between these 2 points, right? And all I did again was I just picked one of the dots here, held shift to make the transpose have a straight line, and have it snap to another point, and that's going to tell me that range. And that's 4 decimal places. That's quite accurate. Now here's the cool part. Do I need to measure the inside? No, not at all, because we use dynamic thickness, which gave us uniform scaling on that key completely across. So I know now that every aspect of that is going to be 0.2655, but that's quite large. Like that's a large cut. So we don't necessarily need that cut to be that large. So remember that number, right? Now let's correlate to our thickness here. So it says our thickness was 0.002. It's an arbitrary number based on that, but that number equated to 0.2655, right? So now I could say, well, you know what? Maybe let's just go ahead and do 0.001 instead. Make that a little bit easier, a little smaller. I should get half of that result-ish. So let's do that one more time. Let's make this cut real quick. Well, it's not going to work if I don't have the dog visible, so let me turn everything back on. Yay, that's great. We can close the folder down, and then we can do this one more time. Got to have everything visible or ZBrush will ignore you and say it's not going to cut. So make sure your stuff is visible. And then from there, come in. Okay, here we go. So now let's repeat this action. Let's turn on our wireframe here. Let's try to find the straightest line possible. That's always going to be your best friend. Hit W. Again, that should be our transpose. This point, hold shift to this point. Boom. 0.1338. All right, that's livable. I can live with that. That's really good. Because depending on what you're printing at, layer height, you know, if you're printing in resin, a layer height is going to be somewhere between, you know, 50 macro, 0.05, maybe 100 macro, so 0.1, you know what I mean? So that's a little bit more than a layer height. That should be decent distance. Again, this is where I'm going to say now you get to kind of play with your printer settings and the settings you're pulling out of ZBrush. There's always a little bit of trial and error in the first time your printer corresponds to your models, because everything shrinks a little bit. Whether you're working with resin or you're working with filament, there's always a bit of shrinkage that will occur after your model is cut. So what I recommend is do this to a test cube. Get a test cube and make a few different cuts, write those settings down, and then correlate that to what you're going to do next time. And then, boom, once you're satisfied and you're happy with it, then all you need to do here, separate your pieces out, come over to our poly groups, auto groups, right? Go ahead and select this guy. We can see here's our one cut, and then here's our other cut right there. Beautiful. So all I need to do now is just split this, split hidden, and now we have our 2 pieces right here. And if I were to just move this down, there you go. And now that's to make a really simple key cut. That's like really easy. And what's cool about this is, you know, I used to get asked this question a lot. Well, what about seams or like, you know, little cuts and stuff like that? You're always going to have a little bit of seams on most of your cuts. The idea is to try to hide them as best as possible when you're making your key cuts. So the other way to make a key cut would actually be, you know, creating your main male insert and then cutting against your model to make the female insert, which I can show you in a second. Let me just check up with the chat real quick because I've like busted it all out. Let's see here. Don't cut the talkie. Yeah. Let me stylize hair from curves after Boolean meshing them together. Dynamic retopo doesn't work. Can I save my work or do I need to start from scratch? After Boolean meshing them together, dynamic retopo doesn't work. That must mean there's a hole you might have. For that question real quick, Mad Crafter, one of the things I want you to do, and you should do this with a lot of models, even for 3D printing, or just if you go to retopo, right, your dynamic retopo and it's not working, there could be a hole. So the easiest thing you can do is go to your go to geometry, come down here to mesh integrity and check your mesh integrity. It will say either test complete successfully, which means it's good, there's no internal errors with it, or what will happen is it'll give you a number of like there's like 20 errors, and if that is the case, then hit fix mesh, and that should help with that. If that doesn't help with that, then one of the things I would recommend you do is go to geometry, modify topology, and you can go to close holes. That's always a good one. But sometimes maybe there's a hole you don't see, like maybe one side of the face is not completely stitched to the other. So weld points is a great way to do that as well. At the end of the day, if you come up here to transform and you go to analyze selected subtool, and it's going to have you pick a scale. So whatever, there's my scale. Now it's going to give you some context. If your model is watertight, like this one here, that means no holes, everything is copacetic. However, if it says not watertight, then something else could be an issue, which means you could have some floating topology or little bits that are like, just like, imagine this little thing right here. I just drew out a little bit right here. So check this out. So if I can't see this, now if I come up here and I analyze the subtool, do this one more time, see here it says it's not watertight. That means that it's inspecting another anomaly in your model. And sometimes it's as simple as these little tiny pieces of topology that you can't see. So the easiest way to solve that, pretending I can't see that one, would be to just go to your poly groups, go to auto groups, and then I want you to go ahead and press and hold Control Shift, tap one model, and then while pressing Control and Shift, drag out. If your model, quote, disappears, then you're probably looking at little bits of that are there, you know, and you can swipe again, and then it'd be like, okay, so now you can identify. Then all you need to do is just go to your geometry, modify topology, delete hidden, and then go back up and check it one more time, and then boom, watertight. So these are little things that like can really save you on the back end, especially when you have errors like that, because that same error I just showed you is going to prevent Z-remesher or dynamic remeshing to be possible, because it's correlating an error and it just kind of stops it. So those are ways that usually can fix it. Yeah, shows how you would do it without the live Boolean. How did you teach it before? Yes, exactly. Yep, we're gonna do that right now. Not a problem. Hey, Too Fun, how you doing, buddy? Oh my God, Too Fun, dude. How are you doing, man? I know I like fell off the face of the earth on my Discord, but it's so great to see you, bud. Thanks for coming in, man. All right, so how do you make a cut before live Boolean, all that other good jazz? So let's do it. This turned into a 3D prep stream, and I love it. And our little demon guy, he's just judging me profusely. So let me just show you real quick the non-live Boolean way of doing it, and then I'm going to show you how I do key cutting now. And I'll show you on one of the horns on the demon statue in order to quote get like those kind of key cuts there. So first off, if you were going to do a key cut, if you're going to do a key cut for like to say just popping something in here, we're just going to be really silly here. We're just going to use a cylinder. Okay, we're going to kind of turn everything but this off, and I'm just going to turn all of that off except for these two things. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead, come in here, and I'm going to go ahead and say edge loop, delete loops. This is the non-live Boolean way of doing things. Kind of scale that down just a little bit. Yes, beautiful. Awesome. Get my Z modeler happening here. Insert multiple loops. Good. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. So I'm going to insert that. I want to cut that into another object. The fun part about this, right, is there's a Dynamesh way of cutting. So first off, one of the things to kind of notice here is that when I click this guy to negative, without live Boolean being turned on, nothing is going to happen, right? Turn that off, it's going to be fine. But here's what's really cool. I'm going to turn the wireframe on for you guys. And so one of the things here to kind of notice, if I want to cut this one thing out of this, I'm going to merge this down, but I need the cutter to be set to cut. I need that to be set to subtraction. That's like super important, because what will happen is, look at the wireframe now of this cutter, okay? It's kind of like this yellow color. Now check this out. What I'm going to do is, with that set to cut, I'm going to come to merge. I'm going to merge down. Say, okay. Boom. What happened there? Nothing happened there. Why didn't that work? Great question. Let's do this. Oh, Ian. Hold on one second. Yes. Let's do this one more time. I messed it up. My bad. So I first need to have something set to Dynamesh. Let's just do it like this. Boom. Yes. We all do the things and stuff, you know. If I'm not messing up, life ain't good. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to come in here and set this to Dynamesh. Forgot we need a Dynamesh setting, so 256 should be more than enough. Boom, Dynamesh setting. Yay, Dynamesh. So this object should be set to Dynamesh. It's been a while since I've done this. This one should be set to cut. Just for the sake of argument, I'm going to just go ahead and see something real quick. I'm going to set that one to cut, but this one will be set to Dynamesh, which will be, yeah, same thing. 256 sounds great, but we're going to hide it for a second. Okay, that'll be cut there. I think this should work here. All right, so this one's set to Dynamesh, that's set to cutter. Merge this down. Again, there we go. Okay, so now that the object was moved down, the object that was set to, quote, cut turns into a white polygroup, which is a temporary polygroup, but it's also the polygroup color associated with subtraction. And so here, if I were to Dynamesh this, it cuts it. And that's actually one of the old school ways of actually doing a key cut with your model. Still very effective today, but one of the things to kind of note is that, right, when you're making a cutter for toys, you need to know that there's enough space for that. So usually I like to inflate my cutter to be a little bit more than what it is, which the easiest way you could do that is Control Drag and just kind of inflate that, then make your subtraction and make your cut. So then the space of your key, right, would fit. So that part would fit right there. Then that's your distance right here. But here's the thing I don't like about this method is that I don't have a really good way of controlling the actual gap without a lot of trial and error, whereas the live Boolean method with the dynamic thickness allows me to have a little bit more control with that kind of cut. So that's one way of doing that. Now, let me show you the way I cut I cut my models up for 3D printing. So let's come over here. Let's come back into this. Hello, Mr. Guy. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and we're going to call this key cut example, so I can just save it. And look, I did caps lock on. We're going to leave that there. Okay, so first and foremost is that I like to isolate things down to its simplest form. So let me just move these spikes, and let me just go ahead and say split. Lower this down, we're going to say split hidden. Okay, so that way we can just focus on the two things. Let me turn everything else off except for this guy and this guy. All right, there we go. And actually what's fun is if your model's symmetrical like this, then you only need to do the one, but you do want to kind of, there's like some good tips on like it making sure that you set up your left side keys to look a little bit different than your right side keys, because you want to make sure you're putting the right piece in the right slot. Makes sense, but for the sake of argument, we're just going to go ahead and just work on the one side. So let's just delete hidden as I tangent, modify topology, delete hidden. Beautiful. Okay. So here, this is what I'm going to say. I don't work with subdivisions once I'm ready for 3D printing. But one thing I'm going to notice here is let's turn on transparency. We want to have a nice connection between the model that it's actually going to be entering. We want to make sure that there's a nice connection. Right here, I have this kind of just shoved in there, and it's not looking pretty. So what I want to do is I want to grab a different brush. And here with Control and Shift selected, I'm going to grab my knife curve, right? And I want to create as much of a straight line as possible to insert. Now, the reason why I'm going to use the knife curve is when I make this cut, so this out, it gives me a new polygroup. And polygroup is also really going to be beneficial here because there's a few ways we can create some keys. So one of the ways to create the keys is this is a fun one because you can create some like custom stuff. But here you could just Control Shift tap the polygroup and mask that off, right? And then hit W and then just hold Alt and tap on your model, and that's going to face your gizmo to the normal, right? So it allows me to pull this straight out, okay? So now I can pull this straight out, and then I can taper this. Say something like this. There you go. And now when I'm satisfied with this, right, this is why I typically will use or recommend Dynamesh. Now, Dynamesh is really fun because we could just press and hold this resolution slider and find the exact resolution of the densest part of the model. So this says it's about 688, so we'll just go up to 1,000. We'll turn blur off. We don't need polish turned on, and let's just Dynamesh that. All right, so that's going to give me nice, it's going to hold the resolution as much as possible. And then I actually can come through here. What I like to do is use the H polish and just kind of slightly come in and do a light cleanup. You could turn your focal shift up a little bit and just kind of rework these spots just a teeny bit, right? Because we're getting rid of any artifacting that is occurring. I'm going to show you another way too, because a lot of times I just create a quick key and I do a quick insert. But if you want to do, I've seen a lot of artists do this. I've done this a few times. Sometimes there's not enough room to have a big key go in there. So this is a really effective way to kind of do it, right? Because then you can create like this really nice section. And then here too, you can also just kind of smooth these areas out, naturally rounding off these sharp edges. Because again, we don't want sharp edges, right? You just kind of nicely have that come in. Now, this is what I was talking about when I was mentioning, like, you know, you want to be able to, of course, you know, kind of hide your seams. Now, one of the big problems here is that we need to look at something, and that is, of course, if we go here to our select lasso, notice this point right here, right there. Notice that point. And also notice this point. Bing, 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 right? Notice these 2 points. This is our apex of our key cut. And this apex needs to be smaller than the entry point, or your model's not going to fit in there, right? You can't have this part be smaller and then have a big part inner. So you need to make sure that your apex of your sculpt actually matches so it can insert correctly. So in something like this is where maybe we do a slight design change and we kind of pull this out a little bit and make that work, all right? Or we have the key itself, or we adjust the internals to then be as even as possible. So then you can have your key there. Something else you could do, so I'm going to just go ahead and Control-Shift-D duplicate this one thing. Now I'm going to come back here, and let's go back to the beginning. Right? If you cannot adjust the model, like you're doing something for a client, right? And you're like, you know, for example, you're at work and you can't just, like, it's all been approved and now you have to cut it and you can't change anything, right? Then what we need to do is make sure that our key cut makes sense. So we need to go ahead and cut this a little bit differently. So maybe what I need to do is I need to cut just at this base level, just at the point in which it's going to enter the model, okay? And then from here, same thing. You can isolate this poly group. You also can just go ahead, instead of isolating that, going to this and then masking, blah, 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 just hold control here. Gizmo open, hold control and tap. That will automatically snap it to the poly group normal and mask off the other poly groups. And then you can just bring this straight out just a little bit. Now the apex of this point, of the entry point, is the exact same distance, right, as the internal. So now this will fit. This will be good. So then you could do something like this. And then if you wanted to, right, we can, again, I don't have to Dynamesh this guy right now, but we also could just create a nice little temporary key. So let's do something like this. Let's just grab this little cube. Let's go to initialize and let's go to Q cube. All right. And all I'm going to do here is we're just going to taper this just like that. Okay. And then with this key tapered, let's just hide this guy for a second. Let's just go ahead, scale this down, move over, and position this. Or do ourselves a favor, right? Come in here, face it downwards, create a brush, say new. Yes, now we have a brush. Let's just get rid of that. Let's come back here, zoom in, and then just draw a key out. There you go. Saved yourself a whole lot of headache. Now you have your key right here. Again, this is kind of sharp, right? So instead of doing that, let's just make sure that we give ourselves a little TLC, right? Set yourself up for success. I highly recommend. So let's just give ourselves some topology and kind of subdivide that a little bit, right? Delete lower, make a new key, insert, boom. I make a lot of temporary keys because it's just easier for me, right? Move in here, drag this out, boom, embed that in. That's going to be super beautiful. Now I'm going to go ahead, and this is where I'm going to Dynamesh this, right? I'm going to find that resolution that makes sense. There you go, 1000 should be good. No blur. Well, that was bad because I didn't do 1000. No blur, boom. There you go. Now this is welded in, and that's going to work. I'll take that. So now to make this cut, again, we're going to just do the same thing. We're going to come in here to this little head and make a folder. And then now we're going to make our key here. Now this is the cool part. This is the part that, like, it's like the real, like, this is what happens next. Here, right, we need to work with scale. Still, scale is beneficial. But I need to duplicate this because this is my final, like, this is this one little piece. This is what is going to get final printed, but not what I'm going to cut with. I'm going to duplicate this. And because I'm going to duplicate that, I'm going to hit solo, right? I need to inflate this a little bit. I need to make this a little bit bigger so it can insert correctly. So what I'm going to do, let's work with scale first. So Z plugin, scale master, set scene scale. That's fine. We'll work with the horn. Let's say I want the horn to be the widest part. Okay, so X is the widest. Let's say I want this to be 25.4. This is going to be an inch. I'm going to resize everything based on that. That's fine. Give it a second. I have a lot of subtools. Perfect. All right, that's scaled up nicely. Set scene scale. Yeah, that works. So now this is 1 inch. Okay, great. So now from here, I renamed this and I call this like my horn cutter, right? And what I'm going to do now is, because I'm working in scale, the best thing to do, right? Again, this is going to require you to write some numbers down, but we're going to come in here and we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to do an inflate and I'm going to go, let's see, what does 2 look like? You barely saw anything happen. Okay, so what does 10 look like? Am I on the right subtool? I am on the right subtool. There we go. Okay. So it's barely moving here. So let's just say 25. That's fine. Now, if I turn on transparency and let's go to the subtool, we zoom in here. This will be a little hard to see, but there is going to be a slight difference. And that's going to be hard to measure, but that's okay because we can measure it at the end. So let's hide this for a second, turn off transparency. Now I'm going to set this one to cut. This will be cut and then live Boolean. And now this is going to be my insert, like my cutting side, right? If I turn this on and I zoom in, I can see, all right, there is a gap. That gap might work. It's going to be really hard to measure right here. So let's just make the cut. So I'm going to go ahead, close this down. We're just going to say Boolean the folder because we don't have any subdivisions. We just inflated that a bit. And that inflation was like out of 10. So I just have to remember that. So now I have my cut here, okay? And something to note is that we're going to go ahead and we need to actually pick this one. And then we need to come down to display properties and we need to flip our normals. Come in here so we can actually hit transparency and we can find the distance. We can see what that looks like. And that's really, really tight. I'm going to tell you that right now. That's pretty tight. But let's see what it measures out to. So grab the gizmo, hit Y for transpose. So we have this. And we need to find, looks like, it's going to be, this will be fun. But it looks like, if I hit solo for just a second. Yeah, okay. Oh, it's not too bad. So it looks like from here to here, it's about 0.033. Yeah, that's too tight. That's not going to work. Like the shrinking, it's going to be really, really tight. So I need to remember that. So this is where, again, you kind of write some numbers down. So then I'll come back here, delete this one because the cut didn't matter. Open this guy back up, turn off transparency, right? Come in here, don't need the wireframe. So if I did that at like an inflation of 10, then I'll do an inflation of, let's just go crazy, 25, just for the sake of argument. And then now we're going to make that cut one more time. And this is what you do. You just go through this whole process back and forth. And then you just, after a while, this will become very normal for you. And so here, let's turn this back on. Same thing, you guessed it. Come on down to display properties. Flip that. Turn on our transparency. Select this guy. Let's just come in here and make sure we can find. Yep, there we go. So again, hit the gizmo, hit W, or hit Y rather, point to point, holding shift, putting it there. All right, that's 0.07, so we're getting there. Anyway, so you repeat this process until you get what you're looking for, but that's the other way that I actually make my key cuts. And then once, let's say we like that, let's say we're good, right? Well, now what's fun about this is that, boom, A, you can't tell it's a key, which is nice, and it has your cut. And so that's how you make like custom cuts. Hopefully that was helpful. I just tangented the whole time. So thanks for listening. All right, let's see. What did I miss? Because I know I missed something. So chaotic as usual. Good, 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 good. Hey, what's up, Zachary? Let's see. Emperor Cheese, what's you doing, man? All right, let me come back up. Could you say if 2026 dropped support on older CPU architectures? A student of mine was trying to upgrade, test out 2026, having 2025.2.2. It wouldn't launch and his system crashed on his PC. Interesting. I'm not sure, Ink Motion. I can't answer that question because I don't know. I'm not on that side. But what I would say is you have access to support. Just reach out to the support team. Just go to maxon.net. There's a support section and let them know, and somebody will help you with that. Yes. Let's see. With the ZBrush Summit around the corner, is there any info or teasers you can give us? What to expect? Who might be demoing? All that is going to be coming really, really soon. I know, like, I'm super excited to announce a lot of it, but there's a lot of back-end stuff that's needing to happen. We just announced the Summit Sculpt Off. There were some teasers I saw on social media. So, but what you can do for any updates, let me see here real quick. Should just be as simple as, let's find out. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I want to say. No, not AI mode. No one wants that at all. Thank you. Just come here. I'll see if I can link this in the chat, but this will give you all the updates where everything's at. What is happening with my internet right meow? Anyway, there's a bunch of info on this event page, if it will load for me. I don't need to be blinding you all. Give me the link. All right, I'll drop the link when it loads up. I don't know why it's going slow. Oh, there it goes. Oh, interesting. It sent me to the Korean version, which is fine. All right, here. This will hopefully be helpful for you guys. Let me know if that link works for you. You could do the distance between the two horns if there was a nice flat spot for you to do that. But I like to do the cut because what the gizmo or the transpose tool does is it snaps to a point, so you can feel the vertice that it cuts in. So you can feel that one point, and then you can feel it kind of touch. So you're getting a more accurate measurement that way. But yes, absolutely. The short answer is you could do that. What's up, Shane? What's happening? Oh, hey, 3D Maniac. How you doing, buddy? Oh, don't worry about it. Sorry you lost power, but we're here. Oh, thanks. Let's see. That was actually a little nice masterclass for you. Nice. Vic says, Ian, question. I need to sculpt the model, but then when I want to rescale for printing, it's a mess. Is there a way to scale it without a mess? Yes. Actually, this falls right into what we're currently chatting about right now. So one of the things to do actually is have all your subtools visible. This is super nice. So let's just, there you go. Let's say that, and I guess the eye works. All right, so let's say this is what I want to do with it. The thing you want to do actually is go to Scale Master and click New Bounding Box Subtool. Okay, and what this is going to do is it's going to create a perfect box that will give you everything to the last point. It will frame everything perfectly. So you can see, hopefully you guys can see, that you can see the box itself. Maybe this will be better. There you go. Not that guy. You will see the box itself. No, there you go. That's better. Anyway, so you'll see how the horns and stuff come up and they touch. And so it's going to pick the longest or the widest part of each subject. Then you can measure, or you could set the dimensions based on this box, giving you more of a cubic measurement. So here, if now I know like Y is the tallest, so now I can just say, all right, well, I need this to be a really big statue. So this is 400 millimeters in total height. And so I can hit resize subtool based on that box and then hit OK. Now, the thing to remember here is that the subtool that you're using to set your scale, keep that consistent. So then I'd say for the bounding box here, I literally just call this like 400 millimeter scale, right? Name it whatever makes sense to you. Scale tall, because why not? Now I know this, right? And here's the cool part about this is that anytime you need to scale something, you literally just click this guy here, and then you say hit set scene scale, and then boom, that's it. But here is the other thing too. When you're going to export out for 3D printing, it's important to know that Scale Master does not directly, I repeat, does not directly communicate with 3D Print Hub. This is a big mistake I see a lot of people make. Basically, they're two different plugins doing similar actions. what you want to do with 3D Print Hub, and this is where a lot of scale issues can happen. If you say set scene scale or update size ratio under the 3D Print Hub, and then you're on your 400 millimeter bounding box, and you say 400 millimeter, the mistake that then happens is somebody's like, okay, well, I got that. Let me hide this, and then let me go to the spikes, right? And then what is happening now is that if I were to come here to say export, what 3D Print Hub is doing is it's looking at the size of the bounding box as 400 millimeter in height, but then it's going to export based on those dimensions, because this is a one-time solution, right? By clicking this update size ratio, you're now setting the size ratios to a different subtool. So if I were to then export out this one horn, so let's go here, let's go boom to, if I were to export out this horn, it's going to take the 400 and try to make sense of the horn, and it's going to cause problems. And then you're going to have a massive or tiny horn, depending on what you do. So what you need to do is, once everything's set and you're ready to export, just go to the bounding box, update your size ratio, and then go to export. And then when you go to export, before you do that, actually, just go to export settings and say all of the visible subtools. You're the best. Okay, so let's just open this guy back up. Sent perfectly on X, Y, and Z. Then from here, you're ready for export. Go up to 3D Print Hub, ready for export. Go up to 3D Print Hub. You're ready for 3D printing.